what got me interested in stepping up to being a recruiter is I noticed like a lot of the candidates I was finding were getting hired. So I was like, okay, so I know how to find them. I'm just not talking to them yet. Yeah, I'm already nice at this. Let's go. So that competitive drive, that I had as an athlete that was just core in me is, okay, man, I already know how to shoot the jumper. Like, put me in the game, coach.
At a high level, what was like money and sourcing like back then?
Man, early in my career, man, like when I was a sourcer, man, I wasn't making a lot. I was probably around in the 40,000 range. And at the time, man, I remember when I was young and hungry, making $45,000 for me a couple years in my career, right out of college at that time for me was a lot of money.
What makes a good technical sourcer?
I think that first off, I think just to be good at that, and I would even say just to be good at recruiting in general, I think you have to have great communication skills. The reason is because you're typically, even as a source or even as a recruiter, they go hand in hand, really. You're the first person from the company that they're going to talk to. So you're the first impression. So I think it's important to have good communication skills, both verbal and written. I think it's great to have a presence. You are the ambassador of the company.
This video is being brought to you by Course Careers. What's going on, guys? If you're looking to start your IT career, then check out the IT course at Course Careers, taught by none other than the great Josh Medical. I'm pretty sure you heard of him. But we all know that it could be pretty pricey getting into IT, and this course is very affordable. And also, if you don't want to pay back those student loans like I have to, then this is the course for you. So check out the Course Careers course. My link will be in the description. Use code TEXTUAL50 in order to get $50 off of your course and get started on your IT career today. All right, y'all. So today is July 29th. It's the day of the big fight. This fight been in the workings for about 5 to 6 years. We got Errol, E&J Spence versus Terrence Bud Crawford. And I'm standing on all 10, man. Anybody can win, but I'm picking Bud to win. Decision or maybe possibly late stoppage. I'm picking Bud to win. You got a horse in the race?
Not really, but I do like Terrence Crawford. I like his technique. I like his ability. I've been watching him for a little while, so I like Terrence for sure.
Yeah, I'm just a fan of boxers. That's like of course everybody's a real boxer, but he hold himself like outside the ring, inside the ring, like the boxers my pops in the grew up watching, and that's who my dad going for too. So we just like people that live a real boxer's lifestyle and don't take it for granted. So I feel like some of those intangibles going to come into the ring, as well as, unfortunately, Errol had the bad wreck. He got different teeth in his mouth now and tore his retina the year before that. And he is really been at 147 too long. So maybe those things show up tonight. Who knows? Maybe you guys see me maybe by the time this comes out, I was right. I could be wrong. It's boxing. Anything can happen.
Yeah, same here. But yeah, I'm definitely going for Terrence, man. But we'll see what happens.
Yep. But let me get them gunshots going real quick to wake y'all up on this Monday. Welcome back to the Textual Talk Podcast, where I'm your host, HD. This is episode 97, and we got my guy here, Bob the Builder, a.k.a. Bobby McNeil, and he came to rock with us today. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or even Google Podcasts, please leave us a comment, share it out so the algorithm can help us grow. And if you're watching right now on YouTube, please leave us a comment, hit the like button, subscribe. Same thing. It always helps the algorithm, helps us grow. You guys did amazing on my episode like 2 weeks ago with Chloe, so I'm expecting the same thing from you guys today. But we got Bob right here, and funny enough, I didn't have time to do it, but right before the pod, I was gonna like rip the sound from Bob the Builder, and I was gonna make that a little sound bite and play it for you.
Yeah.
But can you tell the audience, man, who is Bobby, man?
Yeah, so basically, I'll kind of just give a quick summary. I've been in the tech recruiting game for about 14 years. Started off as a sourcer. Now I'm a principal talent acquisition specialist for software and electrical engineering at Stryker. Worked at a lot of different Fortune 500 companies, Eaton, AWS as well. So I've literally been in the game for a long time. I'm also the chapter president for the Raleigh-Durham region for the Blacks in Technology Foundation. We're all about increasing representation for Black people in the tech industry. We do that a number of different ways. But I'm also a former college athlete. You can probably see my jersey in the back, and some other stuff here. So Barton College Bulldogs, 2007 Division II national champions. So before I started like in corporate America, and before I started in the tech industry, I was a star basketball player. So that's a little bit about me, just kind of like my career, and then also some things I've done, prior to that.
Nice, man. As you've seen on some of the questions I sent you, I was going to ask a little bit about high school. I know that's like the scene probably like a long time ago now for you, as far as like maybe your
Yeah.
interest at that time and what you had your sets, your sights set on back then. But I guess let's talk about a little bit, I guess, like from high school to college. What was your mindset then? Because sometimes I would say probably like most athletes, like I had Josh on here last week and he was talking about how he
Hmm.
played college football, now he's in cybersecurity. And, he started off doing something different at first. Like when he went into school, I think he said his first major was like physical therapy.
Hmm.
So what was your mindset like coming out of school? I know you was balling and everything else. Like what was your mindset on?
Yeah, man. Like high school, like it was all about, playing ball. You know what I mean? Like, but also my parents, they really instilled in me and my sister the importance of education too, right? So, you know, our family has a history of ballers, so I was the next one in the generation in line, right? But she also, my mom and my dad, but my mom especially wanted to make sure that I applied myself, like, as far as from an educational standpoint. So really in high school, I was that, typical, star athlete. It was all about basketball. I was practicing, I was in the gym, I was doing AAU tournaments, going to basketball camps. That was like my thing. I like eat, breathe, and slept it, basketball, right? But also wanted to make sure I was good in school too, right? So, I lived on the honor roll, when I was in high school, right? So I was really involved there. Really involved, like in sports in general. I played a little bit of a wide receiver when I was in high school, and I remember like the coach at the high school I went to was like, "Hey man, you could be a D1 wideout, like because I could run real fast and I had good hands, right? And I had like good lateral movement. And I was like, no, I'm just gonna stick to this ball thing, man." So I ended up playing basketball. I was a 4-year varsity letterman, and that was just my mindset, man. I was trying to get to the league, like every young guy that's playing basketball, right? I was trying to get to the league, but I knew I was like, okay, I need to go to college first because it's interesting. I was in the same kind of class as LeBron, like so I was a senior in 2003, and man, I remember going to like I think it was like
Did
one
y'all
of the
play them at
basketball
AAU?
camps. Huh?
Did y'all play them at AAU?
I did not. I played against Chris Paul in AAU
How
because Chris Paul
how's
was
that go? That's
here
my
in North
favorite player.
Carolina. Was that?
That's my favorite player. How that went?
Yeah. Chris Paul, he's here in North Carolina. Well, he was. He grew up here. He was like the number one player in the state by far. But I remember like kind of being in that same group and kind of hearing about him and kind of hearing about LeBron and everything like that. But that was my mindset. Definitely the next step for me was to like work as hard as I can to get a full scholarship and get that ride. But also wanted to make sure too that I was on top of myself academically because I just didn't want to be stereotyped. I think that's something that was important for me, even when I was younger, as a young black man. I didn't want to be stereotyped. Like, yeah, I can play ball, but I can write a mean essay too. So,
That's nice, man. I think a lot of young brothers, and I'm not going to go that far and say that it would be. I think I've seen a difference. I've seen my friends that were extremely good in sports that had both parents also kind of be balanced with being good in their grades, and I've seen, unfortunately, sometimes the boys maybe that presence wasn't around as much, focus more so on sports, and then take their grades as serious. And ironically, one of the smarter things for kids to do that are in sports is to have good grades because that's going to help you get into better schools. Because I knew some people that were super talented in certain sports, but because they didn't take care of business in their classroom or the ACT score wasn't a certain score, they couldn't get into some of the colleges that they wanted to go to. So they had to settle for other ones, or maybe they just didn't get an offer.
yeah.
And I
Yeah, I
want to
remember.
touch on what you were talking about with the wide receiver thing real quick. Is
Yeah.
from my observation back in high school and even college, like a lot of basketball players super extremely talented, especially for if they want to play skill positions.
Hmm.
And I could see why they wouldn't want to, because it's like, okay, boom, the basketball workout, I'm gonna make way more than the people playing, football, or whatever. So I could see that. But like, we always like, even sometimes like just in gym, we'll be out there playing, two-hand touch or whatever. We're like, man, why they don't come play the hour? They can jump, they can do this. Like, we'll be a monster with these dudes, man.
Yeah.
One of our star players was a two-way, really three. Like he was like, I think he did track. I think he did like shot putter and track. He was very good in basketball, and he was like one of the state's top DNs. And they want him to come to LSU, but he didn't want to go there because they were going to try to make him play football. He wanted to play basketball.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's just crazy,
Yeah.
man. So you go from high school into college. And also I want to talk about this too, because granted, you also had a scholarship. So I know it's a little bit different. But I don't think we talk about how important it is to really look into the school, that whether it's you or possible kids, maybe going into those curriculums, maybe looking at like the alumni, and then, us being Black, like looking at like that population there, really going through that and understand what this investment of time and money is for kids for 4 years. I don't think we do a good enough due diligence at it, because a lot of times, a lot of people are first generation graduates.
Yeah.
And they don't know who to turn to. I think now that we're in the social media age, you can reach out to somebody like yourself or me or many of our other counterparts that are out here that have been to school. But did you have, I'm actually like this, because I just thought about this question. Did you have like multiple offers, or was the one you had, is that the one you said, I'm just going my move because they're going to let me play right away?
Yeah. I had multiple offers, but what you said was very key, because I was first generation male in my family to graduate from high school and to go to college.
Same.
Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, I had multiple offers. Now in high school, I was a star, no doubt. When I was in college, I was, full transparency, I was more of a role player, you know, but, I had multiple offers. I had some like low level D1 offers. I had a few, not even a few, I had a handful of D2 offers, because Barton College is NCAA Division II.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a few D2 offers. I had some partials too, like from some like more notable like CIAA schools and things like that. But my decision making process was, Barton College at the time, they were the top, or one of the top, NCAA Division II basketball programs in the country, and still are. You know, so actually, a guy that I mentor is actually going to be going there.
Nice.
In the fall. So I'm actually really excited about that. It gives me even more of a reason to go to a game. But what I didn't have any kind of people, like guys in my family or that came before me that had college experience. So a lot of ways in my family, I was a trailblazer, and kind of still am to an extent. But what I really did is I definitely wanted to involve my parents. My parents, granted they didn't have any college experience, but I wanted to definitely involve them, because not only did they want me to go to a great basketball program, but they were concerned about the academia as well, the academics, the culture of the school. Like think about it, like you're sending your child to another place for 4 years. So I wanted to make sure that I involved them as well, and like even some of the guys I mentor, like that, athletes, student athletes, going to make that jump and make that decision. Definitely involve, some key people in your life that's older than you and wiser than you, because they may be able to see things that you may not see. But yeah, I got a full athletic. A lot of people don't know this as well. I got a full academic scholarship too. So for 4 years. So again, my
So you
parents
double
stressing the
dip?
importance. Yeah. Yeah, I got a full academic and full athletic. A lot of people just talk about the athletic piece because that's sexy. You
Right.
know what I mean? Oh, you got a full athletic scholarship, but I got a full academic too. But I give, huge props and kudos to my parents for, definitely instilling in me early the importance of education.
Yeah, man. Gunshots for real. So now that's perfect that you actually already kind of laid that up for me, saying a role player in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're going to talk about that later on, about why I also feel like most kids should play a sport, because it just teaches you some things that transfer over to corporate. So
No doubt.
let's briefly talk about college, national championships, maybe some things you discovered, because I've had some videos about college can prepare you for the real world,
Hmm.
how college can be beneficial, because the latest talk around town is like you don't need to go to college. And while I agree you don't need to, I always do tell people you can find a cheap way to go or somebody can pay for it. It can't hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are some things that you learned your time in college, being a student and an athlete? What are some different things that you learned and you took away that you kind of keep with you still to this day?
Yeah. I think when I was in college, for sure, I worked hard when I was in high school, but in college, that's a whole nother level of
Mm-hmm.
athleticism. That's a whole nother level of curriculum, right? So I had to definitely learn what hard work truly was and what hard work truly is. As a student athlete, you got to be highly dedicated. Highly dedicated. I remember, getting up early, going to practices. We were doing skill workouts. You got to eat breakfast, then you got to go to class. Then you got to come back, do drills, go back to class, and then do weightlifting. Then you got to do, homeroom or like, do your study group, to make sure, you're doing your work you need to do. And then we would practice for like 3.5 hours.
Right.
So I think, yeah, that there was a difference. There was a different level, you know, of hard work. So I think I learned what that was all about. It's not only working hard, but working smart.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times, we don't talk about that as much. We like working hard, but what are you working hard at? And are you spending quality time and valuable time working on the things that are going to give you the most optimal benefit? So that's what I learned truly about hard work, time management. You are away from your parents, you're away from your mother or away from your father or guardian, whoever's looking after you in your early years. And yeah, they're a phone call away, but they're not there. So you have to you really get a fast track on being an adult. And that's really where I kind of look at college at. If we just taking the academics out, you're basically having an apprenticeship on how to be an adult. Those 4 years, you got to get yourself up. You got to make sure you eating. Yeah, you got coaches and things like that, but they're really there for the athletic piece. They're really there to make sure you're the best player that you can be, and also the best man or woman that you can be. But a lot of that autonomy is really on you. So time management, prioritization, and responsibility. I think a lot of things that I learned being in college and being a student athlete. If we're just talking non-academic.
Nice, nice. I like that because I said those same sentiments too about just growing you up. Like I was on the quarter system, so you had the kind of pros and cons of not going to class a day, or maybe somebody giving you the work. All those different things. There is nobody. That first,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the people that came in that first semester with you, you don't see them no more.
Yeah,
And
yeah, and I
that's no. You was finna say something?
yeah, and I think playing sports. You were talking about that earlier, like being involved in sports. People, yeah, you got to make your grades and all of that, but really, what it does, like it keeps you accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I got to do my work in the classroom so I can be on the athletic field or be on the court, and it keeps you accountable, right? Especially when you're in college, because college sports, I mean, let's not even lie about it. It's a business. So that's one thing I did learn too. That smacked me right dab in the face
Yeah.
once I got to college. It was all fun and games when it was high school and AAU and all of that. But, there's a lot invested into the success of an athletic team. And that, you're talking about, the differentiator between wins and losses can be a coach's job,
Oh yeah.
could be, all of that. Like there's a lot of money, or if it's not a lot of money, there is some money and some things invested, resources invested in that, right?
Right.
So it's no joke. It's a business, and there's a lot of accountability. So you got to hold your grades. You gotta you gotta be a good, upstanding person on campus in that community.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of accountability for sure.
And speaking of that, I'm glad you said it's a business because over the years, well, now we're being a little bit more progressive. Now we got kids getting NIL deals where they're making more. Like for example, Angel Reese and all them at LSU, they making more than the
Mhm.
women in the WNBA just without their deals.
Yeah, Hmm.
I was going to ask you about how you feel about athletes getting paid because, like you said, it's a business, and we know now. I think the disadvantage is some smaller schools probably cannot pay, based on bigger schools. But I think that's just like the real world. Like you go
Hmm.
to a bigger company that has a bigger budget and a bigger pay band, they're gonna pay you more than a smaller company that can't pay that. So I think it's just
Yeah.
relative to your skill set. You should be paid based on the value you bring to a team. So what you
Yeah.
feel about that?
Man, let me tell you, back I'm a date myself a little bit, right? I was in college from 2003 to 2007.
Hmm.
Like while I was in college, Facebook had just dropped, and it was the Facebook. And I remember when, and I'm gonna tie all this in, but I remember like you had to have a college email address to get on Facebook. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so social media really wasn't a thing like that, right? Like, it didn't really become prominent till well, after I was in college. And man, like all these different social media platforms that athletes have today, to, put themselves out there, get exposure. I mean, my God, I wish I had that when I was playing, right? So I'm totally for athletes getting paid something. College, I'm all for college athletes getting paid 100%. I remember even like autographs that I signed and things that I did and the team did when we won a national title. Like it would have been great to get some income or some sort of financial support for our name, image, and likeness. But those things just weren't around at the time. And I'm not like bitter about it or
Yeah.
anything. The world has evolved. We live in the digital age now, so having a digital footprint is a must, and you have a digital brand if you like it or not,
Yeah.
right? So I'm 100% for it. I think it should be, and I'm not like an NIL expert, but I would say I think it should be definitely tiered. Obviously, your star players would get some of the more optimal deals because they are the star players. They are the leaders of the team, and they're high performers, right? So
Hmm.
I think there should be more incentives for performance as well in the NIL deal. But I mean, yeah, 100%. I'm all for NCAA athletes getting some sort of financial backing or some sort of opportunity to earn off of their abilities and their name.
Yeah. I totally agree because I think as this goes on and on, they'll have no choice but to probably um, come up out with some of the sanctions they made in the past on people that possibly took money or did things, right? I mean, what do they expect? Like, they forget a lot of these guys that they get at these schools come from impoverished areas. And if they wasn't on a scholarship, they couldn't afford to get there, let alone they probably don't have any money. Lo
Hmm.
and behold, they get hurt and now they can't play no more. Somebody took their spot. Now they
Hmm.
used up. Like that's
Yeah.
that part that really sucks for like athletes. And there should be. I think they have it, and I could be wrong. And it's not like a sports podcast because I don't look into that stuff as much as I used to. But as far as maybe insurance for college players, as far as if you get hurt, like hey, you might have been projected to go first round, second round, third round, no matter. But now if you never bounce back, what's life like for you?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah. And like, I brought up all the social media stuff to say like, man, I would have 100% took advantage of all the different social media platforms that athletes have today, in
Yeah,
this more, evolved digital age. Like if I would have took advantage of some of those things, I had some of those things, man, like I could have like been doing clips on my games, workouts, and I could have expanded my reach far and wide. So
yeah,
I definitely 100% for them using that to get deals, get exposure, and get their name out there for sure. And I think professionals need to be doing that too.
yeah. I agree. I know for me, like I'm just a little younger than you. I came into high school like '06, and then I came out in 2010. And even then, social media wasn't is what it is now. Like I my first social media site was MySpace, and even then, MySpace was
Mhm.
changing at the time. Like you could add certain things, but you couldn't just like have these smartphones where we take these good quality videos and put them up. So there was a barrier to entry if you couldn't afford someone who could actually go out to your games. I had a camera and record you playing. Like a lot of people didn't have somebody to record them playing and all that stuff now. Besides maybe trying to get the film from the coaches and whether or
Yeah,
not that was actually recorded very well. So I definitely agree on that, man. That'd probably be a discussion for like a late night live stream or something one day.
yeah, no
But
doubt.
I forgot to mention and ask you this. But in college, what was your major?
My major was business.
Okay.
Yeah,
Was it like
I was a
business
business major.
administration or
Business administration. Yeah.
okay? Did you have a minor in anything?
Nope.
Okay,
No, that was just my straight up major. Yep.
nice. I would want to. I will be willing to believe that business administration was a. I can't say you can't go wrong with business administration at all, but I think a lot of people do business admin but don't know what they want to do with it, and I think that's sometimes where their holdup is if they go business administration, because I think it's a very good degree, but I also think it's very broad in scope as far as if you don't figure out
Mhm.
what you want to do with it afterwards. Much like
Yeah.
my degree in computer information systems, I think it's very broad and not niche down enough. But
Hmm.
so you finished school, and then your first job was doing accounts receivable. What?
Yeah.
Um, how was that? That did you have like a lot of jobs you applied to once you graduated, or did you already have like an offer waiting on you? How was that for you?
Nah. So I graduated. We just won a national title, and like we won that my senior year, right? So like just like 2 or 3 months later, I'm graduating. I'm walking across stage, and I tried, some of the like overseas stuff and things like that. Honestly, it didn't really kind of pan out for me. So what I did, here in Raleigh, North Carolina, I went to a staffing agency in downtown Raleigh, right? So I was like, I'm going to a staffing agency. This was like '07, '08, right? And I actually went there to, put my name in so they could, help me find a job.
Right.
Like I'm a business major. I've had these internships, I've had these accomplishments and did these, extracurricular things while I was in college. That was really my resume, right? That's all I had to bank on. And I threw the national championship in there too on my resume just in case somebody was interested and cared. But I went there and, like, hey, just kind of was, interviewing. And then this lady, the person that was interviewing me, she was like, hey, you should actually come work for us, to kind of start your career. We have an opening in the finance group. So it was a small staffing agency. They had like their recruiting wing, and then they had their corporate wing with all their corporate functions. So I was like, okay, yeah, sure. It wasn't paying a lot, but it was a start. So I went there, and that's really how I started there. I was like really basically doing corporate accounts receivable. I wasn't like calling, individual consumers like, "Hey, pay your bill." It wasn't like that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, these staffing agencies, they had these contracts with all these large major corporations, right? And they had temps there, or they had people that were we didn't necessarily recruit, but they payrolled there. So it was my job to like kind of look at all these, look at the spreadsheet, look at all these invoices, and actually call like CFOs and call like COOs about like the status of their payment and things like that. So like even at like 22, 23 years old, I was talking to CIOs, CFOs, they, about like these invoices and things like that, and kind of talking about terms and recording, information that they were telling me, putting in the system. I didn't know that was later then going to set me up for what I was going to be doing later on, which is tech recruiting.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
dope, man. And that's the next thing I was going to ask you is like, how did you pivot from doing accounts receivable at that company to doing talent sourcing at that same company? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I didn't enjoy working in finance. I didn't enjoy it. I basically would always go to the other side of the office, right? And I saw people going to lunches. They were like going to conferences, and they were like on the phone, and they were just like, wow, it's just really high paced and really exciting. And I'm like, what is that over there? And then my manager was like, that's the recruiting division. I was like, I want to go there, right? Because it was just highly engaging. It was just a lot of activity. And I didn't really like working back office. I was doing the same thing repetitiously every day, so I wanted to get over there because it just seemed like they had a lot of activity. And I expressed interest in being a recruiter. It's like, hey, I don't have any recruiting experience, but even then, early in my career, I knew the importance of transferable skills then. It wasn't this buzz name that it is right now, but I knew I had the transferable skills, or like what I like to call, business skills. I was like, hey, I'm on the phone a lot already, so I'm on the phone a lot already, and I'm talking to people that I don't know. And not only am I not talking to not only am I talking to people I don't know, I'm talking to, like, C-suite. So I know how to convey this message over the phone. I got some, some of those skills I can communicate and conversate, because that's really big as a recruiter. That's like, okay, cool. Well, I'm not proven yet. So I did not get a recruiter job, but I ended up getting a recruiter, coordinator, sourcing, like type of assistant role. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was a thing I always tell people, like, if you're trying to transition or like trying to get into another field, another industry, sometimes that first job might not be the job you want, but it can be a launching pad to get to where you want to be. So I was just basically doing like managing the job postings. I was like, scheduling interviews for them, doing all the administrative things. I wasn't getting on the phone yet, but I was just really learning kind of the administrative things before I start doing like more of the strategic, tactical things.
Right. Okay. And so what did you like about sourcing that you pretty much decided, hey, I'm going all in. I'm gonna make a career out of this. Like,
Yeah.
what was that?
Yeah.
What about it made you really like it?
Yeah, so the sourcer role has evolved since I was in it. Like now, like sourcer is really, for people who don't know, like a recruiting source is somebody who handles all the top funnel activity in the recruiting funnel, right? So it's basically getting candidates and applicants and kind of pre-qualifying them, right? A lot of sources even get on the phone with people, and they get them to like a certain point in the process. A sourcer back in the day wasn't what a sourcer is now. It was just all like finding the profiles, identifying the applicants based on the job requirements, and sending them over to the recruiter so they could talk to them, right? What I liked about it is that it gave me an opportunity to really kind of learn, okay, what a recruiter is going to look for, right? So I like that. So like I had to like really, it gave me an opportunity to profile calibrate before I could even get on the phone. Right. So it gave me an opportunity to learn, okay, this is what hiring managers are looking for. Right. And I see a consistent trend, consistent theme, but also, okay, this is what the recruiters that I'm supporting, this is what they're looking for. So it gave me an opportunity to really kind of learn what that looks like. Another thing that I like too is that before I got on the phone with anybody, I was shadowing interviews. I was shadowing like phone screens. I was shadowing hiring manager interviews. I was shadowing panel interviews, and I made sure I took notes. And I remember I had this big notebook, and I would just take notes, and I would just document stuff in a Word doc, things I would see, because I was keeping up with the trends. So I think like hearing all of those things, I think what set me apart from a lot of my peers at the time who were kind of young in the game and entry level like me, is that I took every opportunity that I had to learn very seriously. I just wasn't in there like sitting like kind of sitting like this when they were like, having interviews or anything like that. I was like deliberate about taking notes and learning. What got me interested in stepping up to being a recruiter is I noticed like a lot of the candidates I was finding were getting hired. So I was like, okay, so I know how to find them. I'm just not talking to them yet. I'm not influencing any recruiting processes. So if like, I think like, I don't remember, I remember I ran like a whole spreadsheet. I just know I had a high percentage of my people who were getting hired, because I was literally just passing them over to the recruiter and they were talking to them. So I was like, okay, I want to get in the game. So now I know how to find them. Check. Now I want to talk to these people. I want to help them prepare for interviews. I want to be the person that guides them through the process. So it was just basically, man, just being, having, being successful. And a lot of people I was finding on LinkedIn and finding on Career Builder at the time. And that's the stuff we used. We're
I'm
getting
glad you
hired. So I
said
was like,
that.
yeah, man, I'm already nice at this. Like, let's go. Like, so that competitive drive that I had as an athlete, that was just core in me. It's like, okay, man, I already know how to shoot the jumper. Like, put me in the game, coach. I'm
Right.
ready to play. So that's what it was all about.
I feel you on that one, man. Shout out to you for that, because I was about to ask you, because I forgot about Career Builder and Monster and all those sites back in the day that pretty much were used, and then until LinkedIn came on and started getting a little bit more prevalent and more
Mhm.
respected, and eventually kind of being probably like that main place that people look for. So around this time, this might have been what, when you were doing this, around 2009, 2010.
2009, 2010. Yeah.
Okay, so at a high level, what was like money and sourcing like back then? I know it's probably changed over the last
Oh
what
yeah.
13,
It's changed a
15
lot.
years. So like, what was it then? Because my, not the last episode, a couple episodes ago, Chloe and I were just talking about how in 2013, 2014, how we thought 40K, 45K, was doing it as a young professional back then, right? Because it was just a different time.
Yeah.
Stuff wasn't as expensive as it is now. What was that looking like back then in '09? I know that's pretty much right after financial collapse, stuff like that in '08. So
Yeah.
everything's kind of slowly but surely coming back up. What was that like back then?
Man, early in my career, man, like when I was a sourcer, man, I wasn't making a lot. I was probably around in the 30, 40,000
Hmm.
range. And I've come so far. Like I'm well above that now.
Right.
But at the time, man, I remember when, I was young and hungry, making $45,000 for me a couple years in my career, right out of college at that time for me was a lot of money. And I remember even talking to like my friends and my peers that were in the game with me at the time, and we were happy if we got a if we got a $45,000 base salary offer letter.
Yeah.
Like our goal was like, can we just get to 40K? You know, but I really look at that time in my career. It was really a blessing because I wasn't making a lot of money, but it was fun. It was a fun time. It was a learning time, and it was a time where I could definitely like really like learn my skills. But I was young and hungry, man. It was like 45,000 then was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Now, being being fully embedded in the tech industry, man, sources make way more than that now.
Yeah.
So I tell people, man, like I've been around. You see me a lot. I do a lot of things, but man, I literally started from the bottom.
Yeah. Dope. I mean, but what you weren't getting in salary, you were getting in skills.
Hmm.
And so one of the things that's also talks of contention is job hopping, right? Now, I've told people, yeah, you can get paid more on job hop. I'm not going to be against you job hopping because, hey, you got to get your money. But I've told them, hey, you need to make sure that you're not always just job hopping laterally. If you're job hopping, it's to a job that's going to give you better skills. So you have more skills in your utility belt. If you're just job
Hmm.
hopping to the same job, then eventually you're going to plateau out because you didn't learn anything. You're just doing the same thing, just getting paid a little bit
Yep.
more everywhere else versus
Yep.
actually hopping to something that's going to be worthwhile in the next 5 to 10 years that you can always get callbacks for because you did so many things at this company. Like that's what it's really about. Well, to me, it is. I don't know what
Mhm.
your thoughts on it is. I know it's a little
Yeah, I
different with you
mean,
sourcing.
I'm all for strategic job hopping. Keyword and emphasis on strategic though.
Mm-hmm.
When I've talked to a lot of candidates, like even when I've done like sessions with people, they don't the jobs that they've hopped from, it hasn't been strategic. What I mean by
Right.
that is that for me, if you're gonna leave a company after 1 or 2 years, and I'm telling you, I'm practicing what I preach. I quite literally did this, especially early in my career. Right, every move that I made was a strategic move. I either left for more industry exposure because sometimes it's not always about money.
Mm-hmm.
But if it is, cool. But I would say it should pay you significantly more. If you leaving just for like an extra 2K on base, extra 5K on base,
Waste of time.
you need to stay where you're at.
Shoot,
You know,
sometimes the extra 10 don't even be worth it.
right, exactly. Especially after you do all the taxes, whatever state you live
Mm-hmm.
in and all
You
of
got to go
that.
in the office, waste more gas.
Exactly. So I'm not an advocate for that. They have to be paying you a pretty high percentage on over for that, right? So I think that's something that because that can change your livelihood. You can take that money, you can invest it into other things, whether it's recertifying yourself or even some endeavors outside of your career if you're looking to invest in some things. So that's strategic because it helps your livelihood, but also that if you're managing your money correctly, you can invest in other things. You can like invest in yourself, invest in other things that you can double your income or increase your income outside of what you're earning in your career. So that would be an example of strategic. Also, you mentioned as well, which I agree. Like for instance, I was working after I left Headway, which was the company I was talking about when I first started. I went to another staffing agency for a recruiter job, right? So that was a strategic move. Once I got there, I went to a technical staffing agency. That was strategic because it got me embedded into the tech industry.
Yep.
And everything that's associated, adjacent, or attached to the tech industry is going to be lucrative. Not even if you're not a technologist yourself, if you work non-tech, chances are on the balances of probability your earning potential is going to be higher. So I went that route so I could get knowledge on technical recruiting and understanding that environment, that industry, and that atmosphere, right? So if it's to get more exposure to an industry, up level your skills, up level your exposure to different technologies. I'm 100% for that. But just leaving a job just because somebody made you mad on Monday and the Thursday, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, yeah. I got a client that was
Yeah.
kind of. It's not as similar, but I mean, it is what it is. But also, like you said, when we were talking about investing yourself in certifications or whatever, one of the things too, like I talk about, is through the interview process is figuring out, hey, what do they feel about continuing education or you improving yourself? A lot of times
Hmm.
I ask those questions. They say, oh, well, we have this allocated for conferences. We do this for these different type of like SANS programs, and we do this and that. I'm like, all right, cool. Because that stuff ain't got to come out your pocket. I mean, I don't mind the reimbursement, but if I ain't got to pay it at all, y'all just pay it, that's perfect.
Hmm.
So there are other things that you can get that would, like, for example, SANS sometimes cost you, $10,000.
Hmm.
Now, the new job you take may not give you a substantial amount of raise and salary, but the fact that you don't got to come out 10K of your own money, a win is a win, and you're getting valuable skills that maybe you get a higher position at the company or you go somewhere else just off of the information that you learn with that skill set. So I'm glad that you touched on that. And now I want to ask you, since you brought up being and moving to technical sourcing, in your own like definition, what makes a good technical sourcer?
I think that first off, I think I'm just to be good at that, and I would even say just to be good at recruiting in general. I think you have to have great communication skills. The reason is because you're typically, even as a source or even as a recruiter, they kind of go hand in hand, really. You're the first person from the company that they're going to talk to. So you're the first impression, right? So I think it's important to have good communication skills, both verbal and written. I think it's great to have a presence. I mean, you are the ambassador of the company. I think also a good source or a good recruiter is somebody who is going to advocate for the candidate. You have to advocating for the candidate is big. And what I mean by that is that, look for ways to be a door opener instead of a gatekeeper, you know. Now, granted, I think there are certain things in life that should be gatekept just for just care and things like that. But understanding that it's your job as a recruiter to be an advocate, prepare your candidates. A good recruiter is going to prepare their candidates for the interview and make sure they have all the information they need to be successful at each stage. As a good recruiter, a good sourcer, it's got to be more than just getting somebody in the recruiting process. That's important, but you play a role in the longevity of that candidate getting through the process. So a good recruiter is going to be informed and is going to help prepare you and be an advocate for you, right? I think also is, especially in technical sourcing and technical recruiting, you have to know what's going on in the tech industry. When I've even managed recruiters, in my career, or even recruiters I mentor now, you got to be able to talk some technical lingo. You got to be able to talk technology at a conversational level. No one is going to, the hiring managers is not going to expect you as a technical recruiter, or even the engineer that you're talking to your phone screening is not going to expect you to be a technologist. They're not going to expect you to know how to code in Java. They're not going to expect you how to understand the nuances of data science. But you got to be at least able to talk about it at a conversational level, right? So that way you earn trust from the hiring manager, but you also get buy-in and trust from the candidate,
Mm-hmm.
right? I've had so many stories of, like, recruiters I've worked with. I mean, not even say recruiters I work with, candidates that have gotten on the phone with me and like, hey man, you're great, because I just talked to another recruiter, another company. They didn't know anything. They didn't know the difference between front end, back end, full stack. They didn't know anything. Like, they didn't know anything about the role at some sort of technical level. So I think it's important to know that. I also think you have to understand what's going on in the market as far as where candidates are going. Why are candidates leaving companies? Why is talent moving? I'll even take it a step deeper. Why is talent migration? That's going to help you source. That's going to help you strategize with your hiring managers. Like, why are people moving out? Why is tech talent moving out of California? Why are people leaving these companies and moving to these companies? So it's important to understand that, right? So you can be a better partner for your hiring managers, but also be a better advocate for your candidates.
Yeah,
So I think those are the key things.
yeah. That you said a lot of stuff that I agree with because I've had some times where I talk to recruiters. I'm like, okay, I mean, I guess, and just from the candidate side, sometimes you just feel like, let's say, for instance, I did make it through the screening, but when you talk to the recruiters, like they don't even kind of at a conversational level, they don't really know much. It's like, how could you be so sure you're making the right decision when you can't even talk to me about the things that y'all supposed to be hiring for?
Right.
So I totally agree with you on that one, and I also agree with you about the taking a step further about saying knowing why people are leaving. I think that's a
Mhm.
big one. You're gonna have the companies that's gonna be progressive, and you're gonna have the companies that's just gonna. What I've seen is a lot of companies are saying, "Oh, well, we're so and so, and this is the way we do it. If you don't like it, then go somewhere else." I've seen them; they're living off their namesake of everybody wants to work here. So it's similar to one of those things of why NBA is better than NFL is because of course, most people's money in the NBA is guaranteed. And it's not I'm gonna try to see if I can segue it back in so I can make my point. In the NFL, there are so many people that just want to play in the NFL that possibly going on a major strike may not work because they'll just put out a product with like anybody unless the main stars don't play. Well,
Mhm.
when you get to some of these bigger companies that have these big names and the mains attached to them, it's going to keep it like that. People will always go and work for them regardless if it's better for the employee or not, just because who it is and what they can be on their resume. So sometimes progress probably can't be met because they know people are willing to take whatever deal they give them because who they are. So I think those companies will still do good, but eventually, we've seen in every 5-10 years some new player emerges and they become the new kid on the block. I think that's what
Mhm.
we're starting to see now, where people are just like, think about it. People are taking huge pay cuts just not to go in office.
Yeah.
There's like, hey,
Yeah.
I'll work remote, man, because I can't get nothing done at work. Everybody's in meetings. Y'all get on my nerves. I just want to do my work at a high level. I don't want to have to wake up and be in traffic for about an hour. I don't get to pick up my kids or see them in the morning. Like those are all the things that employees are thinking about now since they were able to do it for 2 years.
Right. Yeah. And knowing as a technical recruiter, because being a technical recruiter is highly competitive. So you got to understand the motivations of the talent. Like you got to understand that in order to relate to them. You got to be able to relate to the people on the phone. You got to be able to earn trust. As a recruiter, you got to earn trust from everybody because it's a unique role because you have insights on everything that's going on in the company. You're talking to the hiring managers. You're knowing what type of person they're really looking for, to fit their team. But also, especially if a technical recruiter, they're going to give you insights on the technology and the products they're working on. So you know that. You got to
Mm-hmm.
have some sort of financial knowledge. You got to know what the budget is. You got to know what's going on financially internally in the company, but you also got to understand what's going on out in the market financially.
Yep.
Like cybersecurity is paying this, software development is paying this, right? So you got to have both the quantitative data and the qualitative data. What I mean by quantitative, actual reports,
Mm-hmm.
data,
Numbers.
information, numbers, right? Typically, the hiring managers and the internal stakeholders care a lot more about that, right? The qualitative is what people tell you on the candidates tell you on the phone. A lot of information. If you're a good recruiter, your candidates will tell you what's going on. They'll tell you, and then all you gotta do is look for trends. Okay, yeah, I talked to 15 techies today. 12 of them said this, and they from all over the country. Then I can go pull up a LinkedIn Insights report or something like that, and then I can make correlations, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
got to understand, like even people in California. A lot of people from California are moving to Nevada or they're moving to Texas. If they're trying to go all the way from coast to coast, they'll move here to North Carolina, right? So understanding why they're doing that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Free tidbit for the companies if y'all listening right now. If y'all really want to get some of these workers, since they not playing right with the student loans, hey, you work for us, we'll pay X amount of money your student loans. Because some companies are doing that now. So help pay the
Hmm.
loans off. You'll get some people because don't nobody want to pay the loans.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you even talked about certifications. I think that's a lot of times like a lot of people don't think about that when they get an offer or they're like, negotiating. Like, hey, does your company have any programs set up for like, continued education? They might give a certain amount, they might have partnerships with companies like CompTIA or
Mm-hmm.
companies like the Linux Foundation, where their employees may get they might not be free, but you may get a significant discount. Like those are things to ask about. I don't think a lot of times that goes undiscovered. A lot of times in those conversations.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Now, I had like two questions to ask as well, back to being about sourcing. Is about one, uh, how does someone become a sourcer? And two, I talked about this earlier. What skills that you use in your basketball career are you using as a sourcer now?
Okay, no, that's good. So, there's no really, I mean, honestly, if you talk to a lot of, sources and recruiters or people in talent acquisition, a lot of people just fell into it, right? There's no degree, there's a human resources degree, but there's no talent acquisition minor or field, right? So a
Hmm.
lot of people just kind of fall into it. A lot of people just kind of transition. So I think in order to do that, I think you have to, again, have great communication skills, both written and verbal, especially verbal, great communication skills. I think you also need to be good at research and be a continued learner because, especially if you're a technical recruiter, the industry is always changing. And there's always a new technology every few years that's going to change the landscape of the industry, right? Or there's, new policies and procedures and regulations that change within human resources or even within the talent acquisition field that you need to know about and you need to be updated about. So great communication, a good researcher, being willing to learn new things. Also, I think you have to have a really good ability to build relationships because you're building relationships all around. You're building relationships with your hiring managers and internal stakeholders, but you're also building relationships with candidates. So being able to be a relator, also being able to, like I said, understand that hey, I might not necessarily be a technologist myself, but understanding that I need to talk about it again. I can't stress this enough because I feel like this is where a lot of technical recruiters and technical sourcers fail. Not all of them, because I know plenty of good ones, but I think that's going to be the differentiator to be able to get on the phone or go to a tech conference and be able to see a resume or be able to see somebody's profile and be able to ask them questions, right? And know what you're asking and kind of know what you're saying. I think that's the key thing. One of the things to answer the second part of that question, one of the things that helped me from, transitioning from a college athlete to the corporate world or technical recruiting, if you're listening to this and you're a former, you're a current college athlete and and you're about to transition to the corporate world, always keep your competitive edge. Always keeping your competitive edge. Um, don't let anybody make you feel bad about that. Because that's going to keep you sharp, right? And competition is going to be in your career no matter what field you go into. You're going to be competing against your peers. You're going to be competing against other companies that are looking for the same talent or or not even necessarily if you're a recruiter looking the same to sell same kind of products or services. You're going to be competing, and oftentimes you're going to be competing with yourself. Good athletes, a great athlete, they're always competing with themselves. They're trying to be better than they were last game. They're trying to be better than they were last season. So always keep your competitive edge. Also, continue to be coachable. Continue to be coachable. Obviously, you had to go through that as an athlete. I had to go through that, but I had to make sure I sustained that mindset because no matter, I mean, I'm principal level now, and I've been a manager before where I've ran, I've overseen recruiting processes for the U.S., Canada, and Brazil. I've had a lot of success, but I always remain coachable. No matter how successful you get in your career, whether you're a tech recruiter or you're a cybersecurity analyst or software developer or you're doing UI UX or if you're doing sales and marketing, it doesn't matter. No matter how successful you get, you're going to need coaching at some point in your career eventually. So remain coachable. Also being able to handle highs and lows effectively, not getting too low in the low moments. Look at them as lessons, but also not getting too too cocky and too arrogant in the wins. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because being able to kind of stay grounded. I think those are things. Also, hard work. Work. Putting the work in. A lot of people, they see a lot of people like like even like me or even other people in the tech industry or even like yourself who are highly successful, and you see us doing great things online and all of this and accomplishing a lot of things, but it's a lot of hard work that went into that behind the scenes, and this is hard work, so being able to put in the work, you might have to get up early and do some things. You might have to take on some extra projects to show and demonstrate your skills, abilities, and value. So those are the things that, I mean, it's so many other things,
Yeah.
but those are one of the main things that I learned in my career, from being an athlete.
Okay. Now, I feel like this was a really good question to ask because I haven't dealt with many of you in my own career. And I want to ask you, and maybe you get this sentiment of this question once I ask it, because since you're a little older than me as well. And I said, are black male tech sourcers similar to black male teachers? Because people don't have a lot of black male teachers. Like I think I got my first black male teacher when I was in 8th grade, and he
Hmm.
taught math.
Yeah.
And actually, I think there are studies about like how beneficial it is for males to be teachers, especially when it comes to girls and boys in their adolescent years. But as far as you being a sorcerer, would you say there are more women sorcerers than there are men? And then let alone when we get into the nuance between black women and black men when it comes to tech sourcing.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you said is important. I agree with that statement. You know, um, the HR industry as a whole really is more woman dominated, right?
Right.
There are more women in HR, and talent acquisition and recruiting falls in HR, under that wing, under that umbrella. There's far more women in the human resources profession, right? So I
Hmm.
think I take my role as a, even, in my career, being a senior level, principal level technical recruiter, and being a black one, and then being a black man in this position. I take it very seriously, and it's very important because, like you mentioned, you don't see that many of us. So I believe that, image is everything, and visibility, especially for us, I think is key, because you don't see a lot of us. You know, it's interesting that you brought up the teacher kind of comparison, black male teacher comparison. Is true because you need to see examples of people actually doing it in your community. You need to see those examples, and you need to see the good examples, the people that are actually successful, the people that are actually doing it right. You need to see those examples. So I think it's 100% a fair comparison, right? I think a lot of times where, and we can go into a much deeper conversation about this, but I think oftentimes the reason, like, a lot of young, black people don't want to get into professions like STEM, for instance, like science, technology, engineering, math, is because they quite literally haven't had any of those examples
Exposure.
early on, right? And everybody's not going to be Drake, everybody's not going to be Beyonce, everybody's not going to be LeBron. It's not to say that you can't. It's
Mm.
not to say it's not possible, but understand that you can be the one of the best black scientists in your city. You can be one of the sharpest software engineers in your town, and you can still make a really good income and earn a really good living and have influence and be an example. And I think that's another reason why a lot of times we don't, as people, we don't gravitate to that. But I think being a black male tech recruiter in an industry where black people are already underrepresented, I think it's key for people to see me and others like me who are doing the work as well. So 100%, the imagery and the visibility matters. That's why I do the things that I do.
Right. Same here. And When you said that, I instantly went to this quote from Stephen A. And I want to read it off because I thought about this perfect. I wish I knew how to sound just like him. But he was saying, for the Jay-Z's, LeBron, Shaqs, and others, I don't consider them the American dream. I consider me the American dream. You got a 1 in a billion shot to be them, but you can be me. You can go to school, you can work hard, and you can make it and be Stephen A.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree.
100%.
I totally agree with that.
100%.
Like,
Yeah. 100%, man. Um, and I think, yeah, I think that quote, he hit it right on here. And I actually think I know what quote you're talking about. And I know you just said it, and I've heard that before. But absolutely, man. Like, I just want to make sure that as people, in our youth, that they understand there's more than one way to be valuable and impactful, right? And I think that's one of the things I learned early on. I knew if I was going to make it to the NBA or not, I knew I was going to make an impact. I knew I was. It was just a matter of what and a matter of when. And like me and you, we're no different, man. Like other people coming up, they can be like
yeah,
us,
shoot, they can
and
be
you can be
better since they
successful.
exposed earlier.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. They need that exposure early, and they need those examples earlier. That's why, I try to make sure that I am visible. I try to make sure that I show people things that I win, things that I achieve, things that I accomplish. It's not for clout. It's not to brag or boast. It's because I know there's a somebody, a young black male or a young black woman who was in the position I was back in 2008. We were talking about my career, and they need to see an example. They need to see that. They need to see a black male in the tech space doing well, right? And I think the black tech community is like unlike no other,
Yeah,
and it's important because they're not just me and you. There's others that are doing well and doing successful, and people. And I think if we talk to them, they will understand that, like, yeah, I'm showcasing this so you can see that that's possible, and people are out here doing it, right? So that's what it's all about at the end of the day, man. Just making sure that we're seen and we're visible, and we can be an example for other people coming up.
yeah, I totally agree. Now, I got a fun question for you, real quick.
All right.
How would your parents describe your job?
Yeah, how would my parents describe my job? Oh, he get people jobs in the tech industry. That's all he get people jobs in the tech industry. He tell them what to do so they can get hired.
Yeah,
That's what they'll say.
yeah. They don't know how to describe me. They just think I know how to do all things computers. And I'm like, that could be farther from the truth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Bobby, he get people jobs in that tech stuff. I don't know how he do it, but he do it. That's what they say.
All right. So you answered this question already. So I'm gonna skip on. I'm gonna go to this next one because you kind of hinted at it, and I guess we can just segue right back into it. So you're big on diversity. Tell us what that means to you, and as a sourcer, is that allowing you the opportunity to bring in even more diverse types of candidates that wouldn't typically been caught if it wasn't for you?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think what diversity means to me is when you're going into any situation or any company organization, people want to feel affirmed, right? People, when you go into any group, right? If it's an organization, company, any group, people look for these different pockets of affirmation in certain ways. They're looking for somebody that they have some common interest with, somebody who they can identify with immediately, right? And to me, that's a key component with diversity, right? Especially when you have like a company or an organization where you're providing a service and a product to a global audience. The world is diverse, so that the people in your community, the people in your organization, the people in your company should be diverse as well, right? So diversity is also about different perspectives also, and getting different perspectives from people who come from different walks of life, right? And I think that's key. I think that definitely helps as far as understanding the market, understanding the audience that you're trying to service. But I think that also it helps with productivity and creativity as well. Because if everybody is saying the same thing all the time, then are you really kind of tapping into innovation of something? Are you really tapping into the most creative um, mindset of your team, right? Because if somebody has a different perspective from a different walk of life, they'll be able to allow you to see some different things. Companies, a lot of companies now are have like diversity recruiting teams that are just dedicated to diversity. My mantra is, being somebody who, like I said, who is a principal level, high level recruiter myself, but also somebody who's managed a team of recruiters. Diversity recruiting is every recruiter's responsibility, right? You don't have to have the designation of diversity recruiter to care about diversity. You shouldn't, right? So a lot of companies are incentivized for to have diverse populations and diverse talent within the organization. So I think that there's a lot of different ways to do that, right? There's a lot of different organizations, like the organization that I'm a part of, right? That has a network and a community of people who are skilled, who are trained, and who are ready to get hired or ready to transition and make a new move. So being able to tap in those communities, being able to sit down and not only from a recruiting standpoint, from an internal standpoint, understanding the diversity and the perspectives and the challenges, the unique challenges of your current employees. That makes you a better employer to actually understand genuinely and intimately what somebody may go through when they're not in the office or when they're not working, right? It just makes you a better, a more of a more dynamic, more understanding person, but it'll make you a better leader and better company. So I'm fully in support of that. That's kind of what all that kind of means to me. One other thing that I will say, and I'm not going to be too long winded
You
on this
good? You
topic,
good? Hey,
but
this what the podcast for?
um, yeah, I think like one thing, when I've worked with recruiting teams, I think it's important also to have I think one of the key things is when a candidate gets in the interview process to really make sure you have a diverse panel of interviewers throughout the process. Because like I said, when somebody's looking to enter an organization or enter a company, that's one of the key things they're looking for. Who can I quickly identify with, right? No matter what, no matter who you are or what you are, like who can I quickly identify with, So I'm all for having diverse interview panels that has a fair representation of multiple groups, because that the diversity, equity, inclusion starts. It doesn't just start when somebody gets into the job. It quite literally starts when they're interviewing, right? Before they even get an offer. If they get an offer or not, it's important to make sure that, hey, this is an inclusive panel. This is a diverse panel. So always make sure that I try my best to influence that as a senior level recruiter for sure.
I'm glad you said that, man, because I I definitely agree with that last part. When it comes to that interview process, back in 2018 when I got laid off and I was just interviewing at these different jobs, sometimes I felt like I was just being interviewed to be interviewed, and sometimes I felt
Mhm.
like they were gonna pick me anyway because in the panel interview nobody looked like me. So I just felt like they just wanted to interview me to get me out the way and give me a bogus excuse, like not like because think about it, some of the rejections. I also don't like generic rejections. Like if you bring me in for a panel, I really would expect like maybe will we a little bit more feedback to maybe even help me in my job search or what. But for example, if you interview me and take me to the end and say, we decided to go with somebody with some more experience, I'm like, but you knew my experience before you interviewed me. I don't like that answer. You knew I didn't have experience doing this, like from the jump. So
Mhm.
like give just say like a better fit or something, but not the experience thing because it wasn't the role didn't require that much experience. I hate that. But I think a lot of people feel like that. I had a guy in my live stream and I think I helped him with his resume before too. And he was telling us about he's had interviewers say like racist things to him.
Mm.
So those like are the things that are scary, but it does also let you know you dodged the bullet from certain companies.
Yeah,
I would
yeah, no
say.
doubt.
I would say.
Yeah, no doubt. And what I've seen in my career, and I think there's efforts to try to, first off, saying something racist in the interview is absolutely wrong
Hmm.
on every single level imaginable, right? But I think that's where it's really incumbent upon your recruiter and even the HR business partners to make sure that to coach and educate the interviewers and the hiring team on unconscious bias as
Right.
well, right? Like you could. I mean, so like I mean, there's people out there that just say mean things just to say them, right? But then there's people out there that may be saying something inappropriate, but they not might not be aware of it. So I
Right.
think there's a lot of work that goes on that should go on before that not only to we talk a lot about coaching candidates a lot, right? And some interviewers need to be coached too,
Yeah.
right? And on unconscious bias, and making sure that hey, this is what this is. These are some examples of it, and try to find ways to navigate around that and not exemplify that in an interview, right?
Yeah.
So I think yeah, we talk a lot about candidate coaching and things like that, but I know in my experience in companies I work with, there was actually a lot of training that went into unconscious bias. Now, are there people that drop the ball? Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I would say also as a candidate, like my listeners know they know I was very high on these couple of companies last year, strictly based off our interview process. Microsoft, Yahoo, and I want to say Target. Of course, I used to work at Target and retail through college, so I'm a little biased there. But those interview processes were great. The people they put to interview me were great. So, like you said, it starts in the interview process to where you would actually want to work for a company. If you didn't get it that time, maybe you want to apply again just for the fact you experienced such a great interview process. Like my
Hmm.
recruiter at Yahoo was phenomenal. I
Hmm.
told the director and everybody, I said, yo, she's amazing. She's like, here's my number. If you need updates, sometimes I got so many messages on LinkedIn or this or email. If you need me right away, please shoot me a text or call me. Like those little things matter because you do feel like you're a priority in this interview process because there are some times where you're trying to figure out, am I still in the loop? Did y'all move on? What's going on? It's been 3, 4, 5 weeks. What is going on? Like, I don't mind if you tell me no, just let me know so I could decide to move
Yeah.
on because I like you guys, but you're not telling me enough. And then
Yeah.
every step of the way, if you're just saying, they made a decision, I'm still getting really good high remarks on you. So we're just having to find out when everybody's schedule works so we can do the next round of interviews. Cool. That goes a
Hmm.
long way with a candidate, making them feel like
Yeah.
they're a priority. So I agree with you, man.
Yeah.
I definitely
Yeah,
agree.
talent attraction that's the job. Is talent attraction. You should be doing everything possible to attract talent, right? Not repel talent,
Right.
right? And word of mouth is the best marketing tool. Think about it, like recruiters talk to each other, but candidates talk to each other too. Oh man, I interviewed at this company, man. It was bad. Don't even mess with them. So like you want to make sure you have a great candidate experience, right? And that's really important. If the person gets selected for the role or not, it's just courtesy, right? Because like you said, you have stories that you remember of a great experience, right? So that goes a long way. If the person, if they select the person or not, you just want to have a good candidate experience. And like I've always said, your recruiter, the primary recruiter that you're working with should be an advocate for you. They should be really your best friend really through the whole process. Yeah, you're gonna talk to other people, but your tech recruiter should be an advocate for you. They should be your best friend through the whole process. They should be one of the key things that a recruiter can do to influence the candidate experience in the most positive way is constant communication. Even when you don't have an update, let them know you don't have an update, and I'm working hard on getting you an update and say, hey, the hiring manager, and tell them why the hiring manager's on vacation, or something. Like let them know, like, hey, I just want to email you and let you know. Oh, I just want to give you a call and let you know I've been trying to get an update for you. I have not been able to get an update. I'm still working on it. Once I know something, I'll let you know. It's just the communication piece.
Yeah. Totally agree. Totally agree. But now I want to ask you real quick about you being, and you told me earlier, so I don't want to mess it up. You are the chairman,
Chapter
chapter
president
president.
for
I knew something was with a C at the beginning. The
yeah.
chapter president of Black and Tech and Raleigh.
Yeah. So I'm the chapter president for the Raleigh Durham region for Blacks in Technology. Yep.
Yeah, two of my clients went to I believe that event you guys put on like a couple of weeks ago. I believe that was you, right?
What event? They have a lot of events.
I,
We have a lot of events in the.
I don't know which one it was, but two of them they went because you shared it on your page and I shared it with them because I knew they were in the area and they actually got to meet each other
Oh,
there.
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the cybersecurity summit.
Yeah, was that y'all right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, cybersecurity summit. Yeah. So we have partnered with CompTIA to make sure that, at least in the Raleigh Durham area, and I think they're doing this in other cities too. So we partner with CompTIA to get people 100% discount codes for our Blacks in Technology members in the Raleigh Durham area, and just also just a broader community. So yeah, so that was a really good partnership that we forged. I met a lot of people there
Yeah.
that utilized that discount code. So that was just good to see too, man. To see brothers and sisters there that were able to go for free and get the knowledge and get some some credentials and things like that. So that was super dope.
Yeah, man, it's good that you guys are doing that, because the one thing I try to remind people about this whole journey of them getting into tech or whatever is the fact that everybody isn't fortunate to have money at the disposal to pay two, 300, 400, $500 to take these certifications. I told them years ago when I failed one of these tests, I was like, I had to get a loan from somebody to pay the $500 to take the CEH that I failed.
Mhm.
And I was
Yeah,
like, everybody, you got to remember, I try to, that's why when you say not to get too low, not to get too high, I don't let what I have going on in my career or what I'm trying to achieve or what I'm achieving take me away from coming from my background of being come from a blue collar family on my come up where I knew where I was at one point. And that's why I'm able to relate to people so much. So I was like, everybody just don't have money to throw out like that. It's not that simple.
yeah,
And it's sometimes not the best advice for them to just go put money into that when they could possibly buy a cheaper course that may give them more skills than going to get the certification.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's cool that y'all
yeah.
do that.
And just to speak on that. So one of the key things about the Blacks in Technology group. So first off, we're global, right? So we have close to 80 chapters in 20 countries. So
Nice.
that means, let's talk about just here in the US. That means in almost every major city in the US, there's a chapter probably near you, right? So we're all about increasing the representation of Black people in the tech industry, right? Our mantra, our mission is stopping the divide, right? So we do that in a number of different ways, right? We partner with other organizations, companies to provide, career support to our members, right? So we do that. We also have like networking mixers and networking events where people can come and mix and mingle amongst themselves, right? In a low pressure environment, right? So we want to get people in the room to talk to each other so they can make those connections. But we want to make sure that we are community focused also, and that we bring attention to things that our community, the Black tech community, may be concerned about, or things that they need, right? So the key thing about being a member with Blacks in Technology is, first off, membership is free, right? So we want to keep the barrier entry low, as low as possible. And you were talking about like certifications and things like that. So first off, the membership is free, but also once you get into the membership portal, there's so many boot camps, certifications, courses that you can take that are significant discount. Some of them are free. I think that's a product manager boot camp that would have cost you, if you're a non-member, $5,000. I think that was the value. But for us, you get it for free.
Man,
And these are like no joke certifications. You're talking about the Linux
sensational.
Foundation. We partner with them, CompTIA, AWS certifications, Google certifications, like you name it, right? So, and I looked through, we just had a general body meeting, and we were kind of going through this with our members. A lot of this stuff is like huge discounts, so not everything is free. And these are like legitimate, like, certifications and boot camps, right? Another thing too, if you're a Black entrepreneur, we have an acceleration program, and we also have other services and resources for Black entrepreneurs in the tech space, where you could, increase your chances of getting grant money and getting backing for your company. So we do a lot of work. So, and my job here as chapter president in the Raleigh Durham region is to make sure that we're doing that, right? So we have a slew of events coming up. I mean, we're already thinking about 2024. That's just how busy we are. So that's a bit about everything. I would encourage people watching this, whatever city you in the U.S., I promise you, there's probably a chapter close to you. So get involved, find out who the chapter president is in that area. And I'm pretty sure they're going to be doing something, some sort of networking event, some sort of tech talk, working with some company to get you all in so you can have exposure to these recruiters.
Nice, nice. I definitely need. I think I did. I sign up for this Dallas area. I can't remember. I'm gonna go look at it. I went to a mixer event that the people Mixer Cloud has been putting on in Houston and Dallas like every month. I
Oh
guess
yeah.
since like probably since almost the beginning of the year, like March or something like that. So that was pretty cool. A lot of black professionals I got to meet Thursday. But now this is the fun stuff, guys. If you made it this far, we're gonna try to give y'all a couple of gems to help y'all out. So for the job searchers out there, what do you like to see on a technical resume?
Hmm. Great question. So for the resume, right? First off, I'm just gonna let before we even get to like all the intricate detail stuff. The format is everything. Like I always say, the format, having a good format helps your resume be more readable, right? I compare like anybody who's done like any like sessions with me. I always can compare the resume to like the human body, right? So your spine, right? Like you think about your spine, right? Like your backbone, that like sets the tone for your posture.
Yep.
Well, having good format on your resume is quite literally the posture of your resume. So it helps it flow well from top to bottom. So it makes it more readable. There's a study, and this has been a thing that's been, kind of really brought to the forefront for recruiters, something that we do in mass. And this has been said for years that a resume, like when somebody's looking at a resume or hiring manager, they spend probably about 6 to 10 seconds looking at your resume.
Yep.
And if I can, so that first 6 to 10 seconds, I'm going to dive deeper into this because I don't think a lot of people really understand. That first 6 to 10 seconds, really, they're looking for it to be readable, right? And if you got stuff all over the place, it's not formatted well, it's like, that's already a turnoff. So having a good format, because that first 6 to 10 seconds, they're looking for format. And while they're doing that, they're looking for certain keywords. So that's number one, having good format. Two, having technical skills on your resume that you can demonstrate in an assessment. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Anything that you put on your resume,
Free
especially
game.
when it comes to technical skills, anything that you put on your resume is fair game for questioning and can and will be assessed. Right. So don't put things on your resume that you just kind of like technical skills that you kind of dabble in, especially if it's directly correlated and related to the job. Right. So have skills on there that you can demonstrate in an assessment with minimal to no supervision at least at a moderate level. You ain't got to be perfect at it, but you can do it on your own and you can do some work, right? So that's another thing we want to see. I want to see work history. I always tell people, try to focus on your most relevant jobs to the job to the role that you're seeking. And I'll probably want like really they for recruiters and hiring managers really only focus on the most recent, maybe 7 to 10 years. So make sure you have the most relevant things on your resume at the top, like that, especially with the experience. I need the most recent, and then as I go down, it needs to take me back in the past,
Right.
right? So I need your most recent at the top, and then it needs to go down from like things you've done before, right? I always say focus on more so on impact versus job duties and responsibilities, especially in the tech world. It's just in general. A lot of big mistake people make is you'll put what your job description was. Like you put
Hey,
what you did.
listen, I was just about to say that, man. And I have a video that I did on like resume mistakes I used to make of my own resume,
Mm-hmm.
showing. I said this is why I wasn't getting hit up. I was like a lot of this stuff I just took from the job I applied to and threw it on there
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
back then I didn't know how to show the value of what I was doing at work. And
Yeah.
nobody,
Exactly.
to be honest, I had like a resume class and like business communications in college, but it wasn't geared towards a technical role. No one
Mm-hmm.
was out there. Like the information was kind of gate kept on like how to like really have a legit resume back then and fixing it. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you said that because I've seen that sometimes. So I say you just put the job description on here. I could tell.
Yeah. Yeah. And you could tell like they're just like those are kind of like the bullet points. Those like you're stating the obvious. What's gonna get me excited about your resume as a recruiter is data, information. I need to know how you made an impact.
Metrics.
Like I need to know how you performed against your metrics. I need to know if you met your metrics. I need to know if you made something better while you was there. Did you increase something by 25%? Did you save the company time? Did you save the company money? And a reason why a lot of people, and I actually had a video about this on LinkedIn, but a reason why a lot of people don't end up putting those things on there because they don't count their wins in their previous jobs. Like anytime you get a performance review and it's solid, anytime you get kudos from a lead or a manager, you need to be taking that. You need to be sending that to your personal email You need to be dropping all your wins in a folder. So when it comes time to update your resume, when you start like looking for that new role, you can just pull from that and
Yep.
you can put it in your resume. So we're looking for impact because that's the things that's going to get me excited and want to talk to you on the phone. And then that's also going to be the things that's going to get the hiring managers excited. Oh, they did this. Oh man, yeah, let's talk to them. Let's bring them in. So if you just got basic bland job duties on your resume, it's not going on the balances of probability. It's not going to get you far.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. Especially like I tell people now, like when I'm coaching clients, I'm like, hey, because it is hard sometimes when I say, hey, what things have you accomplished at any of your jobs? I need them so I can add them on the resume. Sometimes I get some stuff and sometimes I don't. And I just have to finesse and figure out how we can dress something up they did as an accomplishment. But I tell them, hey, from here on forward, everything you do, whether big or small, just write it down.
Mhm. Yeah.
Just have it in your OneNote achievements
Mhm.
and write it down.
Mhm. Yeah.
And also, I know like some people do real struggle with sometimes the metrics part too, because depending on like, for example, my role, like SOC and IR, sometimes we don't know what our work does directly on the like reflect like on the quarterly or monthly report. So sometimes you don't know that. But there are different ways to state your impact. Like now, I don't know exactly what maturity level I helped them do, but like one of my achievements, like I don't have a summary. I have like this career achievement section. It's just like some bullet points, career achievements on my resume. And one of the things I
Mhm.
said is like how I helped one of my companies. We went from a maturity level of like 0 to maturity level of 3. So I just like I could do that at any organization. If y'all need like y'all SOC to be better, like I'm the guy because I did it before. I could do it again. So those are
Mhm.
ways you can kind of, if you not imagination, but if you can kind of research and just know different things about maturity modules. And I think I took that away too because I did do grad school and we had things where we were talking about like maturity models and getting people to buy
Mhm.
in, all these other things. That was one of the ways I was able to dress that up. Cause like we came a long way. So I don't know if we're a 3 or 4, but I'm just gonna say a 3 on the bright side. Maybe I go back and change
Mhm.
it to a 4. But that was pretty cool, man. Now this probably is a fun one because I was talking to shout out to my guy, the Job Father. We were talking about this the other
Mhm.
day. Do's and
Yeah.
don'ts when networking on LinkedIn.
Oh man. Yeah, this is going to be a fun one.
Right.
Okay. So the first thing I'm going to say is do not send really long messages. Like, please don't do that. Like, it's just too long. Don't send long messages because our days like recruiting like recruiters of their jobs are fast paced. Our days are fast paced. I mean, even if you send it to a hiring manager, like or a senior director, right? The days are fast paced. They have a lot of demand. We kind of just want to just like get the information real quick. So definitely don't send a long message. Just kind of get to the point. Also, have some respect and say hello. I know that's real basic, and it's probably like, okay, why does that need to be said? But I'm telling you, like a lot of, even with like my recruiter peers and my recruiter friends that I respect, that I vouch for, we all consistently across the industry say the same thing. Like you just throwing your resume, hey, take a look at this. I need a job. Thanks. It's just really rude. Say good morning. Say good morning, Bobby. Say hello, Bobby. How are you? Start off with that, and then like get to the point and make the ask. Is it okay if I send you my resume? Right? Is it okay if I sit 10 minutes with you just to have a coffee chat to learn a little bit more about the company? Right? Make the ask because what mom always said, closed mouth don't get fed.
Bingo.
So if you don't ask for what you want, chances are you might not get it. And the person that's in that DM or that inbox next that made the ask, they might get it, because sometimes I don't know. People like, hey, happy to connect. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna hit the like button.
Yeah. Sometimes I just do that little auto thing when they send me some sometimes, but I might circle back if they send me something worthwhile. And I agree with you. Like even to taking a step further, like this morning, I said good morning and I let you know, hey, I sent these questions. I could have just, hey, I
Mhm.
sent the questions this morning. But I was like, man, it's the morning time. Good morning. I sent the questions to you, man. So it,
Yeah,
it does, it's just small exchanges of respect. Like I have
yeah.
people now like never had a conversation with me sometimes and they know what I do, so they'll decide to send me their resume. Now sometimes I may look at it, sometimes I'm not, and sometimes I just may just ignore it because I was like, I don't know you. You just sent me this. I'm
Hmm.
very busy, so I don't really have time to even stop and answer this. I got plenty of links on here where you can probably just either schedule some time or just have a conversation with me. But I also like you though. Like I'm so busy, I don't care for even like personally, but I don't care for a lot of small talk just because it's too much small talk. Like get to like what you need to ask me. That's why with
Yeah,
clients we have concise little scripts we'll send to recruiters because hey, they're busy and hope that they see it. It's like boom, hey, how you doing? I'm interested in this role at this company. I applied to this role. Here's the rec. Do you think you can help me out or be able to point me to whoever can help me out with this one? Have a good day, blah, 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 blah. And,
yeah,
a lot of recruiters there say, oh, hey, yeah, I can help you and, and send you on, or maybe they are the recruiter for this. Like, because that's what recruiters say all the time. Like, just please be concise with me because I don't have time to go back and forth and say, hey, and all this other stuff and these one liner messages. Like, it's a lot, man. I see y'all inboxes. That's like, if I can find y'all emails, I tend to email.
man. Yeah. That's another thing too. Like if you got a really like really dope, really cool recruiter, a recruiter that's really engaged out there, a recruiter got a really good reputation, make no mistake about it. Their LinkedIn inbox gonna be lit. It's gonna be on fire. If you can find an email address, and typically recruiters, I think they should have their email address somewhere on their profile. If you can find their email address, send it there because you might have a more of an increased probability of getting a response from them from there. Because yeah, we live on LinkedIn, but let me tell you, our company inbox, we definitely prioritize that because we might be looking for feedback from a hiring manager within there. We may be looking for feedback from somebody else, or we may be looking for like, information about to set up a candidate interview. So like if you like try to find the recruiter's email, their work email, and and maybe send a message there. That'll increase your chances. But to kind of answer your question, about LinkedIn, another thing too, we talked about like not having long messages. But here's what I also say, man. Like, we touched on this a little bit when we were talking about NIL. We live in the digital age now. Our parents and our grandparents grew up in the industrial age. It wasn't important to have like some social media presence or have a LinkedIn online presence, right? So because we live in a digital age, your digital footprint is everything. And you have a brand, if you want one or not, just by being on social media, just by being a professional on LinkedIn. You automatically got one if you want to accept that or not. So with that being said, you have to find ways to engage. And I think a lot of times is the problem is people don't engage. Forbes put out a article recently that I actually posted on Instagram. I should post it on LinkedIn because I think it'll help bless some people. But I think they said 71% of recruiters, hiring managers, employers will go to a social media site, primarily LinkedIn, right? For that. Man, I've been in numerous interview sessions, resume review sessions. And let me tell you something, a lot of times they'll see your LinkedIn before they see your resume.
Yep.
And not having an optimized LinkedIn profile, not having a LinkedIn profile or not having a LinkedIn profile that's put together to me is just as ineffective as not even having a resume. So that's key. Like have your information on your LinkedIn about your experience. Have it on there about your skills, right? But also how to stay engaged. Especially if you got like a really, like I said, really popular, really engaged recruiter on LinkedIn, find like make a list of like 10 to 15 recruiters that seem to be respected and trusted by people. And even take it a step further, like maybe like career coaches or even hiring managers, and always like their stuff. This is real easy. Always like their stuff, always comment on their stuff. Set up notifications so when Bobby McNeil posts something or when Henry posts something, set it up and always like their stuff. Always like their stuff, always comment, always start some sort of conversation, because the more, and this even applies to even outside of the career, because the more times you see somebody like your stuff, you subconsciously start feeling like you know them, right? The same 50 people, I know the same 50 people, no matter what I post on LinkedIn, the same 50 people gonna like my stuff. So if they slide in my DMs asking about a job posting or a position or asking for advice, I'm subconsciously going to prioritize them because I've seen their name all the time and they engage and interact with me. That's a kind of a way to stay engaged and stay connected and network with people on LinkedIn. Is always like this stuff. Even on Instagram, I know the same
Mm-hmm.
50 to 60 people going to like my stuff regardless.
Yeah, man. I was gonna actually talk about that too because I think I said this on LinkedIn before. It's like people forget the aspect of being social because social media.
Hmm.
So being
Yeah,
social, speak, like, comment, share, repost, all that stuff works. Even for me, like, think about how me and you got here. Communicating
exactly.
on the timeline, or like I do it on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. Like, sometimes I might want not just reach out to you because sometimes you might not even know who I am, but if I commented on enough stuff or we had a couple of conversations, you got to see my content when you clicked on my page or vice versa, and then
Hmm.
I finally shoot you a message,
Yeah,
because it's like that. Then people are so
yeah,
busy. Then when they meet you in person, like, oh yeah, you're so and so. Like, it happens all the
yeah.
time. So don't give up the fight. Like, don't think people are far from moving. Like, we see who likes a lot of things. Like, I know I do. I
Hmm.
tell people all the time too, with building your brand. With me, I say, please send me a note when you connect with me. And it's not because I don't want to accept everybody, but I don't want to accept everybody because I don't want to see all that on my timeline. But I'm
Hmm.
talking about if you simply say, hey, how you doing? I'm interested in cybersecurity, or I like your content. I don't care what you say. Most of the time, I
Hmm.
accept the note unless you're sending me a note telling me, are you interested in certifications? That's probably the only times I
Yeah,
probably hit an X on you.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And like, like we, like to your audience, I mean, we practicing what we preaching, like I started liking your stuff and commenting,
Yeah.
and you start liking my stuff and comment because it was reciprocated, and then here we are today.
Yeah.
You can apply that same theory, and that was on Instagram.
Yep.
You can apply that same theory in LinkedIn with recruiters and people of influence and people who have jobs for hire. Like, you could do the same thing, and I promise you, they will subconsciously in their mind, like, oh yeah, I know this, but I've even done it, and I know other people have done it. Oh yeah, I know this, but they always comment on everything. So
Yeah.
you might get VIP treatment in the DMs just by engaging consistently.
That's what the fellas be trying to do with the women when they try to shoot their shot in the DM.
Yep.
They done went through and like 5 pictures from 5 years ago, sending a bad signal.
Yeah.
But
Use those same tactics when
hey,
you're looking for a
facts,
job.
facts.
Networking with LinkedIn with recruiters.
Right. No, and that's the funny thing too. Even if we take it out of recruiters, just regular people. Because one of the things
Hmm.
I have clients who say, okay, boom. So you want to do this, but maybe we have a skills gap here. Let's get a list of, like you said, 15, 10 people. Let's find them. Let's interact with them. Let's reach out to them and see if they got some time to spare to actually help you out. Maybe they can show you some projects or some things you can do so you can add to your resume so you be a, more attractive candidate. It's
Yeah.
simple. I tell people all the time, I'm a broken record, but some of the things are simple. Now, everybody don't want to do the execution of them.
Hmm.
Just like you was
Yeah.
talking when you came from playing ball. Yeah, yeah, we know, it's not super hard to shoot the ball. Like, you're working on your mid range, but how many mid ranges you gonna shoot a day to make sure you can at least make most of them in the game count?
Hmm.
Some people only
Yeah.
gonna shoot 50. Then you got the people that shoot 500.
Hmm. It's a numbers game.
Yep,
100%. The more shots you put up, the better you're gonna be.
bingo,
The more makes you're gonna get. The more you engage and network virtually, the more you increase your chances of connection. So absolutely, I agree.
bingo. So I want to ask you this. Well, actually, not ask you, but yeah, I guess you could say accent. It's still a question, technically. What would be 3 things you would want to leave the audience with today?
Yeah, I think first thing I would say is that if you want to do something, do it. If you want to start the business, start the business. If you want to start the podcast, start the podcast. If you want to go back to school, you want to do the boot camp, do it. And if that passion is in you to do it, do it. I don't like to say life is short because I think that's kind of like it's very finite. I like to say life is precious. You know what I mean? And time flies.
Yeah,
And if it's been on your mind and heart and spirit for the last 6 to 9 months, 1 year to do something, go ahead and do it. And that's the first thing I would say because, like I said, time flies, and you're gonna look up and 6 months then went by, and you still talking about the same thing. I want to do this. I want to do that. Go do it. Go do it. The second thing I would say is you can't be afraid to fail. And I don't really like saying the word failure but I'm just for the sake of this, you can't be afraid to fail. I wish more of us were outcome independent. What I mean by that is that I'd rather here's my thing. I'd rather you try and it not work out than to you not try and always wonder if it would have worked out. Shoot your shot, try it, show up, see what happens.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the thing. Like, don't be afraid to fail. Like, be outcome independent. You know, don't be worried about. Don't be dependent of the outcome. Do it and try it and know where it was and know where you ended up. So you don't ever have to have any regrets when it's all said and done. Me personally, like I said, I'd rather try and it not work out than to be up late at night scratching my head, can't sleep, wondering like, man, I wonder if I would have tried it or done it, would it have worked out? So that's that one thing. And I think the second thing is that there's a lot of with the third thing, there's a lot of conversation about interviews and resumes and LinkedIn, and that's important. It is important. It's important to have optimized LinkedIn. It's important to have do all the engagement tactics and things like that. It's important to have a great resume. That's important. It's imperative. Um, it's important to know how to interview well, right? But I thought, but you got to network. And somebody said this on, I forget who it was, but life happens offline. And
That should be on the shirt.
virtual networking, great. We just talked about it, is great, but get up and go to a conference. If it ain't a big conference, find a networking event in your city. It ain't got to be the most biggest elaborative networking event, but you got to go some. You got to network, right? You got to get out there and shake people's hands, right, and build some rapport with people. Especially now, like now that we coming off the pandemic and what that was, a lot of people just kind of got cool and comfortable with just kind of just staying in, right? I would encourage people now that things are kind of like a lot more open and conferences and networking events and mixers are back, back and consistent and prevalent now. Life happens offline. Go network. Go build some relationships. Because a lot of people like, oh yeah, like I'm not finding any jobs. They're like, okay, are you networking? What networking does when you go to these mixers, these networking events, these meetups or these conferences, it removes the screen, it removes the ATS, and you get a chance to shake somebody's hand and say, "Hey, my name is such and such. I'm a cybersecurity analyst. I'm a product manager at this place. I'm interested in talking to you about my skills." And they'll talk to you. That's what everybody's there to talk. So it at least it doesn't guarantee you a job, but it would at least remove some of these virtual barriers that you may be experiencing when you apply for the job and you don't hear nothing back, and then you get a rejection notice 6 weeks from now. So it doesn't have to be a big conference. It could be something start small. It could be a small event or something like that in your city, and go and make some relationships. One of the things I wish I would have known earlier in my life that I started to learn later in life that is that relationships and network and community and connections matter. A lot of the blessings and a lot of the opportunities. A lot of people see me online and say, "Yo, Bobby, you killing." Fantastic, wonderful, and I'm grateful for it and I'm humble about it. But I'm telling you, a lot of the opportunities I got and a lot of even my current job I got is because I was networking. And it wasn't necessarily what I knew or who I knew, it was who knew me.
There you go.
Nobody's gonna know you if you just sitting in the house. You got to go network. So I know that was a lot, but
Nah, nah, nah. You was on
yeah,
it. You was on it. That's exactly what I told them about when I went to Afrotech last year, and I was like, nothing beats in person networking. Nothing. You can feel
yeah,
somebody's real vibe, and they're more inclined. It's just the energy of it, and that's why I'm trying to move to more in person podcasts as well.
yeah,
But
no doubt.
how does the audience stay in contact with you if they want to connect with you on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. So my LinkedIn, you just put in Bobby McNeil. I'm there. You can also find me with my hashtag Bobby the Builder. So you can find that anything I post, you'll get access to that. So definitely find me there. I post a lot. Like things about interview tips, advice, job opportunities, etc. So you can definitely find me there. Also Instagram, you can just put in Bobby McNeil Jr. Definitely follow me there because I post a lot of stuff there also, and I'm getting ready to start putting out like some video content and things like that, as far as like career tips and things like that, and really getting involved in that way. Also, you can follow me on Twitter. Bobby the Builder. That's actually something I just got started doing. So you can find me there as well. But those are the main three.
Man, that's dope, man. It's been a great episode. I appreciate you for rocking with us today. And look, like I told y'all in the beginning, hopefully we got a fish fry tonight. Hopefully my boy Boogeyman Bud come through with the victory. Either way it go, I'm just happy we're getting a good fight. We've been getting a lot of good fights this year. But as I always say, until next time, let's stay textual. It's your boy HD, and we out.